Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, October 16th, 2024. I am Dave Biddle flying solo on today's show. So we have a lot of questions here, the second off week for the Buckeyes. Let's find some answers. I'm sure you guys have some questions. And later on, I'll try and get to some of those questions. But, I'm going to start the show talking about Zen Michalski taking over at left tackle. They do have some other options. We'll get into that as well. But it looks like it's going to be Zen. I thought he played pretty well. Especially given the circumstances. So we're going to get into that. That's like the biggest thing on my mind right now is Zen going to be able to lock down the left tackle job? I mean, losing Josh Simmons is brutal, but maybe it won't be brutal if Zen can just be solid, because I think the offensive line has been very good. Something else is very good is Cornbread Hemp, our newest sponsor of the show, Cornbread Hemp. Very excited to announce them as our latest sponsor of the show, Cornbread Hemp. It's a really cool company, Cornbread Hemp, and we have a great deal that you guys can get that you really should take advantage of. If you're looking for a healthier way to enjoy a carefree moment, you have to give Cornbread Hemp a try. They've created the first ever USDA organic THC gummy. That's 100% legal for anyone 21 and above. Anywhere in the United States, it's legal. Anywhere in the United States, and they'll ship it to you. Cornbread's gummies have 10 milligrams of THC per gummy for just the right dose. Perfect for taking the edge off without making you feel anxious or paranoid like other cannabis edibles. Cornbread uses no harsh solvents like petrochemicals or industrial acids, unlike most hemp THC products. In fact, they do not use any synthetic ingredients at all. If you're looking for a healthier way to enjoy a carefree moment, you have to give Cornbread Hemp a try. They've created the first ever USDA organic THC gummy that's 100% legal. And as a special offer just for Bucknuts Morning 5 listeners, you can get 30% off your first order. Just visit cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts. Use promo code Bucknuts at checkout. Again, that's cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts. Use code Bucknuts for 30% off your first order. Cheers to a healthier happy hour. There we go. All right. Cheers to all the Buckeye Nation out there. All right, let's get into it. So Zen Michalski, I was kind of encouraged. Live I was encouraged. I watched the game, which is never fun to rewatch a loss, but I also wanted to see that chaotic ending again and Dan Lanning taking advantage of a loophole that sounds like they're immediately going to change that rule. And I guess I'll start with that before I get to Zen. I don't think that's cheating. You guys know I hate cheating. I wouldn't want Ohio State to cheat. That is not cheating. Okay, he didn't make the rule. Finding a loophole in a rule is not cheating. That just means they need to have better rules. It's not his fault that the rule's terrible. He did take advantage of it, and now they're going to change it. It reminds me of, what was it, Brett Bielema years ago against Penn State and Paterno. He kept having his guys run off sides because they had the stupid rule where it didn't matter. Even if they were off sides, they'd run the clock if you kicked it. So they kept running the clock off. What'd they do? Change the rule. So, it's the classic, don't hate the player, hate the game. The rule, hate the rule, don't hate the coach. So did I like seeing it? No. Do I think that was cheating? No. I do not think that was cheating. So, and they're going to change that rule. But anyway, I thought Zen played well. Going back and watching it, I thought he really played well. So, I mean, he's got the prototypical left tackle size, fourth-year junior. We've seen it before where guys, you're like, this guy's never going to play here. Darryl Baldwin, speaking of a national championship team, fifth-year senior comes into that year. People are like, seriously, is Darryl Baldwin really going to be the right tackle? And if he is he going to really hold the job? If he does, is he going to be bad all year? Darryl Baldwin was pretty damn solid as a fifth-year senior after really not playing at all for 4 years. So now Zen's going to get his shot. And we'll see. I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic after what I saw. But it sucks losing Josh Simmons. It just does, because he was playing at least in my opinion, would be drafted in the second round level. Maybe not first round, because he's not, maybe not quite as long as NFL scouts would like for a left tackle. They list him at 6'5". He's probably barely 6'5". Somewhat long arms, but not super long arms. But still, he's really good left tackle in college. And that sucks, because now his Ohio State career is likely over. I mean, he's going to go pro. He technically has another year of eligibility. So we'll see if Zen can lock that down. I hope he can. Now, other options there. I've heard people say maybe move Tegra out there. That's not going to happen, in my opinion. I mean, they've been clear. They want Tegra to learn right guard and stay there and don't move him around, because there was talk maybe Tegra at right tackle as well. Um, I think it's Zen. I mean, yeah, Austin Seiberveld could move out there. He played there during camp when they had like all the guys going down sick. I suppose Carson Hinsman could go out there. He actually played tackle in high school, even though he was a center here last year. But I think it's Zen, and we'll see if he can get the job done. I'm cautiously optimistic. And the good news is coming off this bye week is like they're not playing like cupcakes. We're going to know right away. Not that Nebraska is great, but this is a good Nebraska team. Good. The best that they've had in a long time, which I know is not a very high bar, but still good team. Good team. Not a great team. They lost to Illinois, who's a solid team. They're like right in that middle tier in the Big Ten, Nebraska. Upper middle tier maybe. But they're a good team. That'll be at least a legit test for Ohio State, unlike, their first 3 games of the season, for example. And then Penn State the following week. That's the one I definitely have circled. I know all of you do too. If they get past that Penn State game, they win that game. And I think they will. I think it's going to be really tough. Really tough. Penn State's new offensive coordinator is, I don't know if he's a game changer for them. I won't go that far, but he's definitely was a good hire. They stole him away from Kansas. And you watch Penn State, they're a lot more innovative than they've been offensively. Drew Aller looks a lot more confident and just better at quarterback. They always have talent. We got 2 really good running backs. I'm not big on their receivers, but but their defense is good. They got future NFL studs like Abdul Carter in their defense. Tom Allen's running that defense, but I really like their offensive coordinator. So that's going to be a tough game in Happy Valley. I'm glad it's not going to be at night. It's not official yet, but it sounds like that's going to be a big noon kickoff probably. Because of the baseball playoffs, we know it's not going to be a night game, so that's good. It'll still be a raucous environment, even if it's at noon, but still. I think Ohio State's going to win that game. And if they do, I don't see anybody else beating them. Indiana is the story of college football. I touted them coming into the year, telling everybody I was shouting from the mountaintops, take the over of 5.5 wins for Indiana. Take the over of 5.5 wins. Okay, but I'm not picking Indiana to come to Columbus and beat Ohio State. Okay, there's a lot of middle ground there between. I knew Indiana was going to be over 5.5 wins, which they already are. They're 6-0. It's funny they cashed that bet. Boom. In the minimum amount of games, but they're not going to come here and beat Ohio State. Their defense is not going to hold up. Their defense is already starting to show signs of deterioration. Still a great story. Kurt Cignetti, if Indiana can keep him another year, that'll be a coup because everybody's going to want to hire him. That was just a great hire by them to get Cignetti, who's all he does is win. And he told everybody that at Big Ten Media Days, and people were like, who's this guy? And it's all he does is win. So he's not a spring chicken. He's like 60. He doesn't look like he's 63. So kind of, his dad was a coach. He played quarterback at West Virginia. So Cignetti, hell of a hire. Indiana's not coming here and beating this Ohio State team. Okay, and then that brings us. Am I skipping over Northwestern and Purdue? Yes, I am. I'm definitely doing that. Then that brings us to Michigan. I think they're going to beat Nebraska, which won't be easy, but Nebraska's playing Ohio State at the wrong time. If you're a Cornhusker, you got to be thinking, are you serious? We have to go to Columbus when they're coming off a bye and they're pissed off. Now, typically, Ohio State coming off a bye might not be that big of a deal because if Ohio State's coming off a big win, they're feeling good. They go on a bye. Maybe they're a little rusty, right? This is going to be a hungry Ohio State team coming off a loss. So if you're the Cornhuskers, you got to be thinking, what the hell? It's the wrong time to play Ohio State. That's right. So I'm not worried about that game. Grant, I give this Nebraska team a lot of respect. I think Matt Rule was a good hire as he's showing now this year, and I think they're a good team. I think Ohio State's going to win that game by double digits. Okay, and the Penn State, that's going to be huge, huge, huge next week. Again, if they can get past that Penn State game, I think they're going to cruise home. I really, really, really do. Because Michigan, for so many reasons. I mean, let's start with the fact that they have, one of the worst passing attacks in the country, 130 out of 133. Michigan is in passing offense, 130th out of 133 teams. The 3 teams that are worse than them are New Mexico State, Army, and Air Force. So yeah, you have stalwarts like Navy has a better passing offense than Michigan. And I don't see it getting better. I mean, do we think Jack Tuttle is suddenly the answer? And regardless, they just don't, even if he ends up being like somewhat solid, which I have a hard time imagining, this offensive line is nowhere even in the same stratosphere as what it's been. They've got a big problem at right tackle, this kid Evan Link. They've got a couple other holes in that offensive line, but right tackle is a mess for them. Defense has some studs with Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, and Will Johnson, but they just don't have the depth, and they have some fish in that secondary. I mean, not Will Johnson, he's a stud, but I'm just not worried about the Michigan game at all. And I know people said that the last 3 years. Okay, no, I mean, this is just different though. This Michigan team's completely different. There's no Connor Stallions around. I know he wasn't there for last year's game, but his influence, and last year's game was tight with Kyle McCord at the Big House against the future national champs, and it came down to one possession. That was a tight game last year. I don't think it's going to be tight this year. I think Ohio State's going to beat them by 20 or more at the Horseshoe. All right, let's get to some other things that some things that we need, some questions that we need answered. Okay, the defense. And they're not going to talk about this. If we bring it up, they're talking about this behind closed doors, I have no doubt, from sources that I trust. But the Knowles, Larry Johnson disconnect is real. Is Ryan Day going to sit up there and talk about it? No. Is Knowles going to talk about it? No. They're going to keep that in-house. Trust me on that. Whatever you think about that, I'm just shooting you straight. That's just how it's going to be. They're going to keep that in-house. Ryan Day's not going to come out there and say, yes, we have a disconnect between Larry Johnson and Jim Knowles. That's what I'm here to tell you guys. There is one. I mean, it's obvious. You guys all know that, but this is not just us like pontificating. Like, this is from sources I trust. Like, yeah, there's a big disconnect there. And who is that on? I mean, that's got to be on Coach Day. He's got to be the one to be like, no, you guys, figure it out. This is what we're going to do. And really, Jim Knowles should have final say. Ryan Day needs to say whatever Jim Knowles wants to do, we're going to do. He's the head coach of the defense. So there can't be a disconnect any longer. They've got to figure that out. And by what do I mean by that? I mean, do we really think Jim Knowles is going to be rushing for the entire game? Do we think that was him? Or do you think that was – he never did that previously in his career. Just seems like there's a massive disconnect. There was a play where back seven and the D-line didn't seem like they were on the same page at all. One of those plays where Denzel Burke got burnt. Go back and watch it. Ohio State rushes 2 defensive linemen. They dropped 2 into coverage. They didn't need to drop 2 into coverage. They had already had 7 guys in coverage. They had like 4 guys bracketing a crossing route. They had that crossing route covered, my friends. Buckeyes had that crossing route covered. They had 4 guys. Okay. The problem was they rushed 2, and then Denzel Burke's getting beat deep on man press coverage. You don't have to be a football expert to see that there is a massive disconnect there. And that's just one example, I know, but there's been more. That's just the most glaring, and it's obvious. They've got to figure that out, okay? You can't have the defensive coordinator and the defensive line coach not being on the same page. Jeez. All right, tackling. I bring this up all the time. They've got to figure out a way to be better tacklers. I asked Jim Knowles when he was first hired his thoughts on rugby-style tackling. He says, I'm into it. I don't think they coach it. They don't practice tackling. They practice thudding. They don't actually practice tackling to the ground. You've heard me beat the dead horse with that, but, I mean, you're not going to be a good tackling team if you don't practice tackling. Let's say you wanted to get good at golf. I'm not going to actually practice golf, though. I'm just going to, maybe just have some mental reps or however you want to do it, kind of maybe go play putt-putt or something, kind of pseudo golf. Good luck getting good at golf if you don't practice golf. Good luck being a good tackling defense if you don't tackle in practice. You have to practice anything in sports to be good at it. It's ridiculous. All right. Lack of pressure on quarterbacks. What are we doing here? And I think that goes back to, that's partially the disconnect there. Now, that's not all the disconnect. Guys have to win their one-on-one battles. They're not doing that. Tuimoloau has no moves. He's bull rush, bull rush, bull rush, bull rush, bull rush, bull rush. Sawyer's pretty much the same way, but has maybe a little bit more in his arsenal. But you just don't see that. I don't know what Larry Johnson's doing. They used to be so good with teaching that, that hand combat, boom, boom, boom. Take that offensive lineman and rip his hands down, I'm gonna boom, and then rip through him. They would teach that almost like boxing. Maybe we would see them like sparring before games, like in the locker room, sitting there just sparring like boxers would, and that works. That works. I mean, the great defensive ends all have great hands, in addition to great burst and everything else they have. But they use their hands well. Every great defensive end uses their hands well. I'm a Bengals fan. Trey Hendrickson, watch him. He's probably not even the most athletic guy in the world, and I'm being kind. But, man, he's technically sound. He uses his hands, uses his leverage. But offensive lineman gets his hand. He's like, bam, bam. And you're just not seeing that. You don't see any moves. I mean, Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry have some moves. I don't know. They've got to figure this out, though. I mean, no pressure on quarterbacks, bad tackling. They've got to get more pressure on quarterbacks, and they've got to stop giving up big plays. Can they figure that out? Can they find the answers to those questions? Well, here's the deal. Knowles is getting paid $2 million a year. It wasn't that long ago. I mean, I've covered the team for so long. Maybe it was this. I think it was only 10 years ago. Maybe a little bit longer than that. Maybe 12 years ago. I remember Gene Smith talking to us. I think Urban was here at the time. I think it was early Urban era. Maybe it was 2012, 2013. I remember Gene was in there. We had a press conference, and he said, we're not going to get into the game of paying $1 million assistants. At the time, Ohio State never had $1 million assistant. I think the first was Kevin Wilson, because Schiano first came here. He was still getting paid by the Bucks, Tampa Bay Bucks. So they were able to give him like not a lot of money. But then I think Schiano then was making $1 million. Kevin Wilson was making $1 million. I think Ryan Day's second year, he was making over $1 million. I don't think he came in making $1 million though. But anyway, it's just shifted. We're not getting into paying an assistant coach $1 million, even if they're a coordinator. Now Knowles makes $2 million. Okay, obviously Chip Kelly does as well. That's just the going rate. You can't. But it's funny how it went in from. We're not paying $1 million, and now you are. You're going to pay double that actually. They got to figure it out. Is my point, Larry. I mean, Knowles. I like Knowles. I want to love him, but he's got to figure this out. This is on him. This is really on Ryan Day. I mean, if his defensive coordinator is not getting it done, then he needs to figure out why that is and figure out that get that fixed. Get that fixed. And I think it comes back to that. Not all of it, but I think a lot of it comes back to that disconnect that I keep talking about. You can't have your defensive coordinator and your D-line coach not being on the same page. And it's just completely obvious to me that they're not on the same page. All right. Some other things about this team that we need answered. Can they find a vertical passing game? Because right now they have as much of a vertical passing game as we have here at the show. It's non-existent. We can't throw the ball deep here on the Bucknuts Morning 5, and neither can Ohio State. Now, I've seen Will Howard do it in practice. We can say he has a noodle arm. He doesn't have a cannon. He doesn't have a strong arm, but I've seen him throw deep balls in practice. It doesn't have to be 70 yards down the field. Go route, just get rid of the ball somewhat quick. He can throw the ball 40 yards down the field. Okay. Can he throw it 60? Probably not. But he can throw it 40, 50. Step into it, try to overthrow Jeremiah Smith is what I would tell Will Howard. Try to do it. Watch him like badly overthrow him. Seriously, you got to have some type of vertical passing threat, because what did Oregon do in the second half? They clamped they had no worries about Ohio State beating them deep. They were basically saying, okay, if you do it once, maybe we'll switch, but Ohio State never did it. Never hit them deep. Now, Ohio State's got a very, very, very crisp and effective passing game. They hit you horizontally, intermediate, boom, 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 boom. It's very creative, but there's just a lack of vertical. They can add that. Look out. That's the missing piece. A vertical passing threat. Losing your left tackle is not going to help with that. Okay? Because having vertical passing game, you have to give your quarterback time. So, I mean, you can say get the ball out quick. I mean, it's only so quick you have to have some time if you're going to throw the ball deep, obviously. So is Zen going to be able to hold up? Because I think this offensive line has played a lot better than maybe we expected. I was cautiously optimistic they'd be good, but they've been better than I expected. They really have been. We'll see now without Josh Simmons. But again, the good news, going back to Zen just for a sec, he's got the size. He's now in his fourth year, and he played well the other night. We've seen time and time again a guy gets thrown in there, and they're a fish out of water, like Enoch Vamahi last year, for example. I mean, just embarrassingly bad. And that could have been Zen, especially that big of a stage, raucous environment. Played well. So that gives me some confidence here. All right, more stuff to get into. Before we do that, I want to let you know about our other sponsor here on the program. As I say on the McAfee show, here on the program, I'll tell you about Joy Mode and a great deal you guys can get. Fellas, whether you're looking to spice up your intimate moments or increase your confidence, Joy Mode makes all natural and science-backed supplements dedicated to helping men perform better across their core functions. All ingredients have been assessed in peer-reviewed journals. All ingredients have been studied and researched in humans. It comes in a palm-sized packet like your favorite electrolyte powder. You simply mix 6 to 8 ounces with water, 45 minutes before any activity, and watch the magic unfold, literally. The issue with the over-the-counter pills is they contain unregulated chemicals, suggest unsafe doses, and include the risk of several other health problems. That's why we partnered with our friends over at Joy Mode, because they're all natural and science-backed. Go to tryjoymode.com/bucknuts and get 20% off with code Bucknuts at checkout. That's 20% off and free shipping with code Bucknuts at tryjoymode.com/bucknuts. Bam. All right, I get this question. I hope we don't even get to this point. Obviously, I've been getting the question: would 10-2 Ohio State have any chance of getting in? If that second loss, heaven forbid, is to Penn State, or heaven forbid any loss, they're not going to lose to Michigan. Don't worry about that. Trust me. They're going to pound Michigan. But let's say they lose at Penn State. So your two losses are 1 point on the road against top 5 Oregon, number 3 at the time, number 2 now. You got to think Oregon's going to finish in the top 5. Even if they drop a game, they probably won't drop a game heading into the Big Ten championship game. Even if they do, they'll still be top 5. So you have a 1 point loss on the road at night against top 3 team. Okay. Your other loss would be on the road against another top 5 team. Now, they can't get blown out, but let's say they lose by a field goal to Penn State. 10-2 Ohio State, in my opinion, absolutely would get in. I don't want to see that scenario. I want to see them win out. And we'll get to this. We talked about this on Monday's show too, but the funny thing is about the situation they're in, if they do win out, it'll be like this past Saturday never happened, because they'll be Big Ten champs. They'll have the top 4, probably a top 2 seed. They'll definitely have a first-round bye in the CFP. They'll be basically exactly where they wanted to be, despite the 1 point loss to Oregon. But to answer the question that I keep getting, would 10-2 Ohio State make it? If you tell me that's a close loss to Penn State, I say absolutely 10-2 Ohio State gets in. We are going to see multiple 2-loss teams get in. Now, would Ohio State be close to 10th or 11th in the seeding? Yes. Yes, they would be one of the last teams in, but they would get in. There's no way 2-loss Ohio State, with their only 2 losses being at Oregon, at Penn State in close games, would be left out. Now, what about the quality wins? I hear you. I hear you on that. But, Indiana would at least be a top 25 win. I think Iowa is going to be ranked before it's all said and done. People are writing off Iowa because they lost by 1 point to Iowa State on a last-second field goal. Iowa State's good, and they got blown out by Ohio State. But other than that, Iowa's looked pretty good. My point is, I bet you Iowa's going to finish with a top 25 ranking, so that'll help. Will Ohio State have racked up quality wins? No, but they'll have enough at 10-2 to sneak in. Again, I don't want to see that, because that would be such tough sledding. You'd have a chance, but you have the 10. Let's say they're the 10 seed, because I bet it'd be something like that, 9 or 10, something like that, maybe 11 at the worst. Again, why am I cutting it off at 11? I'm sure most of you know the 12th team is going to be likely the group of 5, the top group of 5 champ, unless that top group of 5 champ is ranked ahead of, let's say, the Big 12 champ or whatever. Then the Big 12 champ would be maybe the 12th seed. So there's really like 11 teams. If you take that group of 5 out, they're going to make it. So Ohio State's going to be in the top 11 if they're 10-2. Think about it. With those being the 2 losses, if that happens. Let's not have that happen. But yes, Ohio State 10-2 would get in 100% in my opinion. And there's going to be definitely, I'll say there'll be 3 2-loss teams that get in. 3 2-loss teams will get in this year. So we get when we have a 12-team playoff, my friends. And maybe Ohio State will benefit from it, but hopefully we don't get there. All right, the good news here is, again, all the goals are on the table, like I said. All the goals are on the table. And there are some good things with this team that, we're not talking about because we're all pissed off that they lost. But no, seriously, I mean, the red zone continues to be fantastic. Fantastic. They've had 26 trips to the red zone. They were bad at it last year. They've completely flipped that. And that's the influence of Chip Kelly, and it's Will Howard being very adept at zone read and RPO plays. He is excellent at that. And Will Howard, I thought, overall played a really good game the other night. He's due for a couple of bonehead plays a game. We know that. Too bad it came on the last play of the game this time, but overall, Will Howard played really well. So they've had the ball in the red zone 26 times this year. 24 touchdowns, 2 field goals. Against Oregon, they were 4 for 5. I had to go back and look. I thought they were 4 for 4. I had to go back and look. They actually had it's hard to talk about. Remember when it was 29-28 Oregon. Ohio State's driving. They get the ball to 19. Forgot they actually did get in the red zone on that drive. Tegra got a false start, before they even snapped the ball. So they never actually took a snap inside the red zone on that drive, but they technically were in the red zone. They had 1st and 10 at the 19. False start, immediately back to the 24. Sputter from there. Fielding kicks a field goal. Buckeyes go up 31-29. Their final points of the evening. Yeah, you scored a touchdown there, go for 2. Could have been good night Oregon right there, but didn't happen. But overall, they've been excellent in the red zone. Excellent. They've taken their weakness on offense last year, and they've turned it into a strength. Again, the one thing that's missing, in my opinion, is a vertical passing threat. You can't let teams – it's similar to when you don't have a running quarterback and teams can just pin their ear back because your quarterback's no threat to run, and they don't have to respect any zone read because they know you're just window dressing. Same thing when you don't have a vertical passing threat. Good defenses are going to take away the short passes. Good defenses are going to cheat up on the running game because they don't fear you beating them deep. You have to be able to beat them deep, especially if they're going to dare you to do it. Clock management, I don't need to beat a dead horse there. We know that has to get markedly better. That was just terrible clock management. There's no getting around it by Ohio State there. Special teams, what are we doing here? We talked all offseason. Well, at least they finally got rid of Parker Fleming. Special teams is going to be markedly better. But it's not. Maybe it's a little better, but it's still not where it needs to be for Ohio State. They've got to figure this out. And I tend to think the off week's coming at a good time. And one more thing I'll say, and we touched on this a little bit with Dan Rubin on Monday's show when I was going on one of my diatribes before I turned the floor over to Dan. I do think, because I'm a huge believer in the mental side of sports, there is a good chance. I'll say, you guys are going to get this as spin doctoring. I know, spin doctoring alert. I think this might have woke them up. Now, we won't know. If we look back on it and they lose another game, and we're just going to say they just weren't a good team, as good as we thought. They weren't a great team. They weren't an elite team like we thought. If they missed the college football playoff or they're one and done, we'll just say, okay, it didn't wake them up. They just were a good team that wasn't as good as we thought. They weren't a great team. But if they come out and they take care of business, not even necessarily go and win the national championship, but run the table here, win the Big Ten, go 12-1, get to at least, let's say, the semifinals of the CFP, if not the finals, or let's hope win it. I think we will look back on this as the game that focused them. And we'll say, man, we were too harsh on them for losing by 1 point on the road at night against a really good team in a game Ohio State, frankly, should have won. So maybe they were a little too high on themselves. Although I didn't really get that feeling. I still felt like they were pretty hungry going to Oregon. I think we got to give Oregon credit. Again, 1 point on the road. So we'll see. That's a good thing about sports. Like we'll find out in a relatively short amount of time. We'll find out over the next few weeks. We'll find out. Did this wake them up? Did this focus them? Now they know they have to play like they have no margin for error. Even though I said 10-2, Ohio State would likely get in if it's a close loss to Penn State. But you don't want to be the 10th seed. You go on the road for the first game. And then even if you win that one on the road against a higher seed, you have to then win 3 more. And then the top 4 teams get a bye. So they're going to be a lot fresher than you are. So that would be extreme tough sledding, which is why they set it up like that. I actually do like that part of the 12-team playoff. I wasn't a fan of going to that many teams, but if you're going to do it, I like that I don't like that the Big 12 champ automatically gets a bye. I think if you're the conference champ of a Power 4 and you're ranked a certain you're ranked in the top 8 or whatever, then maybe I could say I could be okay with a bye. But what if like a 3-loss team wins the Big 12? Probably not going to happen. But if a 3-loss team wins the Big 12, you're going to give them a top 4 seed and a bye. It's ridiculous. But anyway, you don't want that situation if you're Ohio State. But I think this might have focused them. This might have woke them up. All right, I appreciate you guys waking up and spending part of your morning here with me, Bucknuts Morning 5. Now, a lot of you probably been up like sort of 6 a.m., right, working out and doing all the stuff you guys do. But if you're a late riser, I appreciate you getting up and joining me for Bucknuts Morning 5. Dan Rubin will be with you guys tomorrow. Again, if you don't know, no interviews this week, and that was nothing to do with the Oregon game. Excuse me, getting a little choked up just talking about it. But no interviews this week with Ohio State. Again, they told us that last week before the game that week off, so we didn't get Coach Day yesterday, and Usually we get either Jim Knowles or Chip Kelly and then Will Howard. So we didn't get anything yesterday. Nothing today as well. Now, usually it's post-practice interviews Wednesday night. That's not happening tonight. Coach Day will do his regular radio show tomorrow. I wish it was still a call-in show. It's just the radio show. They do take written questions from fans, but I miss the call-in show days. So then next week we get back to a regular schedule. So there you go. No Ohio State football interviews this week, but we got a ton of coverage on Bucknuts, ton of stories, recruiting coverage, stories on the team. We got a bunch of coverage. So get on over to bucknuts.com. Check that stuff out. Thanks, you guys. Really appreciate you joining me. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day.